What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Tuomas of Wolfheart. Great to talk to you again. Thank you for your time in this crazy time.
My pleasure.
Yep. It's so awesome to have you here. Your newest album is Wolves of Karelia. You have the two singles out now, which is Hail of Steel and Ashes. Could this almost serve as like a clear representation of what the whole album is going to sound like, or is this just the beginning?
It's like a completely backward introduction for the album, but those two extremes really paint a good picture of the whole album. It's just the Ashes was the choice of the label and the management, and I gave them the freedom to choose the first single. I chose the second one, but Ashes is the last song of the album, and Hail of Steel is the first one. And since the whole album follows the theme of winter war, now the first single is the last day of the war, and the second one is the first one. But together, they do actually represent the album really well.
Mm-hmm. Do you conceptually just consider this picking up to where you left off after Constellations of the Black Light, or is this kind of like a new start for Wolfheart in a way?
The theme differs this album from Constellation of the Black Light quite greatly, and also there were some changes of the where and who we used with the recording and co-production, and also we changed the guy who did the orchestrations to go in a little bit more like this movie soundtrack kind of layers. Mm-hmm. So there was certain decisions made to make this different, a little bit different from the previous ones. I'm not saying that we invented the wheel completely again. It's still the same basic building blocks that makes our music. But yeah, definitely there was some clear decisions based on just to make things a little bit more fresh this time.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that there is a theme that Wolves of Karelia is revolving around based on the Winter Wars. Did you think of this concept before you started writing any music, or did this idea come as you were writing riffs and beats and everything like that?
Well, this theme has been kind of following the band from the very beginning. To me, it's very inspiring because I'm from the Karelian region. The village where I was born and spent my childhood is very near the Russian border, and my father's family line's farm is only 7 kilometers from the new border. Mm-hmm. And there's still the old monuments, old cannons facing the Russian border and stuff like that I didn't really make the connection when I was a kid. But even in the first album, there's a song called Coast of Karelia, which is about the veterans of the war. And I've been covering the home village area and that Karelian area and the war. There's at least one song in every album, but now it was just more focused on the one particular theme. Mm-hmm. So I got that theme has been traveling with the band from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. Would a listener have a better understanding of the concept of this album if they were to listen to this album chronologically, if they started off with Hail of Steel and ended with Ashes, or could a listener maybe approach this album from any angle?
I think it's art, so it's kind of like a free territory to. It wouldn't really work for me to give instructions how to get into the album and the music. I think every song represents the album well enough to be good introduction for the album. So, and we are living in this digital Spotify streaming time anyway. So a lot of people are already used to just taking song by song, and they get to learn the new music on different playlists. So every song stands on their own well enough. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't need to be. Yeah, it's not that kind of a concept album that musically everything is tied together. It's more like in the lyrics that where the theme follows from the beginning to the end.
Okay, that's interesting. So if I wanted to listen to this album on shuffle, it's not like I'm going to miss something or it's going to be more confusing or anything like that.
No. Every song is about the same war, but every song, all the lyrics are based on the stories and the interviews of the veterans of that war. Mm-hmm. So every song tells a different story of the war.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like the music in itself also, obviously, like when you have an album that revolves around a theme, it's going to influence the lyrics, but do you think that also the music in itself can also tell this story as well?
Yeah, and actually it did have a certain influence on this album because as a Finnish person and a songwriter, this the Winter War thing is quite a close theme, and with the whole region being a part of my history, the Karelian region, I didn't try it intentionally, but the album became very victorious when it comes to the music side. Because having that theme in my head, even though I wasn't writing the music directly based on the theme, it was only meant for the lyrics. They are my heroes. They are the fathers of our grandfathers. And some of the veterans are still alive, so it's not that far in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So it's as neutral as I tried to be with the album cover, not showing any elements of the war, the album title, not really leading into the war theme that clearly, the promo picture is completely neutral. Still, the music, now that I listen to the album, is very like heroic and victorious because of the theme.
Mm-hmm. And is like maybe there a goal where you kind of want listeners to be engaged in this story, or is I think I asked you this on the Constellation record cycle, but could your music also still be open to interpretation?
Yeah, and all music should be anyway. Mm-hmm. It's only if you do it like this. I've been comparing this album to Sabaton a lot, mm-hmm. like interviews, because they cover the war theme differently. It's very direct, very like based on fact and history books, and it's more like a documentary with a soundtrack. So when you listen to their music, there's not that much room for interpretation. It is what it is. When they sing, when they have a song where they sing about certain battle that happened in certain dates, then that's what you're listening to. So at least on this album with Wolfheart, it depends on the point of view, but you can get different interpretations of the lyrics also.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to getting inspired to write, because when I look at the entire, Wolfheart catalog, I almost feel like, there is kind of like a sound that defines you guys and that revolves around you guys. But like, is almost every album that you write also representative of who you are at that particular time as well?
Yeah, definitely it is. Yeah, it's just I think that is one of the biggest reasons why I have this constant need of writing music all the time. And releasing albums probably too fast if you look at the whole thing from the point of view of the music business. Like I just released the second Dawn of Solace album in February, which doesn't make any sense if you just look at from the eyes of the music business. But to me, it's really important just to get the music out, because it's kind of like how I get stuff out from my system, how I document my life. Mm-hmm. So it's currently every album is also like kind of like a picture of me, but I can really easily say that because I know that nobody will actually see that picture in the music. It's a completely different thing, but I reflect to the music and what people get out from the music. So I'm really safe inside my own bubble, even though if I write very directly about myself.
Mm-hmm. Is there a difference, like, in mind frame in playing with Dawn of Solace versus Wolfheart, or being that you're bringing the same brain, it's still Tuomas coming to projects? There's maybe like a similar methodology and creative process to both.
Well, I don't think the creative process could be that different, but it's completely different mindset, and it's one of the reasons why I chose not to do any vocals on the Dawn of Solace album. So. And I loved working with Mikko, who did the clean vocals. We did a lot of 4 Black Sun albums together. And but yeah, the mindset and approach musically is completely different. And to me, it's a lot sadder, a lot darker. It's kind of like if Wolfheart would be kind of like, it's more like energy to me.
Yeah.
Like a source of like certain energy and power. And again, Dawn of Solace is kind of like the deep waters where I just go and drown occasionally. So it's completely opposite to me musically.
Yeah, it almost seems like you have a different goal of release or expressing a different side of you with both projects, but it's still coming directly from you.
Yeah, that is. But there's not much that kind of like a personal stuff in Wolfheart. It's more like the how can I say it? The best. It's like the energy that I reflect. That's Wolfheart, and that's probably what the people pick up in the live gigs also.
Mm-hmm.
But with Dawn of Solace, I could easily go without playing any shows. It would be like an output from completely different mood.
Mm-hmm. One thing I was really curious about is kind of like into the style that you play, because there's elements of black metal, there's elements of melodic death metal, there's so much incorporated, I feel like, in a Wolfheart album. So do you almost kind of like look for inspiration, or do ideas just sometimes come out of the blue?
They do. All of them come out of the blue. I listen very little music nowadays. And if I listen to music, it's the ones that I did like when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really. I follow the music scene very closely. I don't follow the new music that closely. So it's and there's a lot of riffs of the both. I have the same little bit different pattern when it comes to writing the albums, both John Solis and Wolfheart this time. That I wrote a lot of the stuff in the studio while doing the recordings. So it's more like it's just a stream of thought than I actually sit down and decide, and now I'm going to write a song. It's just, yeah, mm-hmm. It just comes out. As simple and naive that sounds, but it just comes out.
No, that's not naive at all. You know, it almost seems like you try to capture a moment with each Wolfheart song, right?
No, yeah, that's pretty much it. I've noticed that the songs that I actually sit down and write and try to make a song and analyze and do pre-production, those are the ones that never really like have any connection with me in the end when they are ready. The biggest excitement and the deepest connection for the songs I get when I just go to studio and make something on the spot.
Yeah. Do you find that it's sometimes, I love asking artists this, but like, do you sometimes find it harder to maintain a moment? Because, you know, sometimes you're working on a song for hours, for days, maybe even weeks. Do you just find it harder to maintain that moment or that energy the longer you work on something?
Yeah, it becomes more like a project. The more you need to work on the song, the more you kind of lose the song. Because, yeah. But I don't really work that long with songs anyway, so I don't know that much about it. I'm just getting worse and worse with every album. That's also, there's my sound engineers out to play, because I've been working same sound engineers for over 10 years now, and both of them we used to play in different bands together. So it's not just professional connection. We are really good friends. So that allows me to be super flexible, which forces them to be super flexible. And I think with me going to studio works a little bit differently than a lot of other people. That you book a studio and you prepare really well and you have like certain days when everything has to be done. I can just work like of course I do have the deadlines that the label gives me and I need to hold those. But there was, I think, one question from my sound engineer, who was the co-producer of the new Wolfheart album also. He made a request to me in one of the studio days. When I came to the studio and he asked me what is the name of the song, I said like, I don't know yet. And he asked me what is the tempo. I said like, I'm not really sure at the moment. And then he asked me like when you come tomorrow, and when we continue, could you please have just one riff ready before you sit on the sofa? Just for him to be a little bit more relaxed with the deadline, that he knows that that's the way I want to work, but he would sleep a little bit better if I would come a little bit more prepared, because I was just, that's the way I like to work. And it's not like I just go to studio and everything that I write is a song, in my opinion. I do get very blunt feedback from my sound engineers also. They are good filters also.
Yeah.
And I do have the ideas in my head, but I don't probably necessarily have anything to say about the song until I start to play guitar and record the song, which can be really stressful for my bandmates sometimes because apparently they do want to prepare. They do want to rehearse their parts, but sometimes there is no parts. There's a last song of the previous album, Valkyries. I wrote that on the last drum recording day in the studio. So my drummer had less than half an hour to pick up the song and learn what I wanted him to play, and then he had to record it. So
He must have been thrilled.
he has been happier.
And I have two more questions for you. But you've also, like, in addition with every band that you've been in, you've also collaborated with a lot of artists as well, such as Among Ruins and Dark the Suns and Lunar Path, etc. Like, when you collaborate with different artists, do they kind of want you to bring what you would do in your previous projects into their band, or do you kind of have to maybe like adjust your playing or vocal or whatever style in order to more or less accommodate to their project?
I haven't. So far, I haven't needed to modify anything, and I think that's why it's been very pleasant and easy for me because it's just being me doing my stuff. But at the same time, always when a band asks me to collaborate, or if I do production for a band like I did with them on Ruins and a few other bands, I kind of feel that I do need to like give the whole input that I have, which means that there's even riffs that I wrote for their album. I'm not gonna say which songs, and nobody needs to like know them anyway. I just whatever I do is to do their album or song or whatever is in the works as good as possible. Mm-hmm. If I have an idea that would make the song better, then that becomes their idea. That's the way I approach the production. So it's not just me going there and just fooling around and doing my stuff. It's I do want to like give something out from me. Mm-hmm. If that makes the album better in their opinion, that's amazing to me.
There you go. And the final question I wanted to ask you is when we spoke on the Carrick Angren tour almost 2 years ago, that was the first time I've ever seen Wolfheart live, and I thought it was an amazing experience watching you play and everything like that. And it was also very different from simply listening to you. Is there maybe a similar energy, or is there maybe a same element of creativity to playing live versus when you're in the studio, or is it that almost kind of like a separate art altogether?
It is really separate art, because what I love about the studio work is building the song layer by layer. And I do, even though if I have the song very well structured and some pre-production done, and we even rehearse that, I do all the melodies and all the vocal arrangements in the studio while recording. So I really like that very creative and very impulsive process of making the album. Then again, the playing live is completely different. Then you have just completely different energy, completely different thing, and I do enjoy both very much differently, because it's like it's not the same at all. The song that you wrote in the studio and recorded and produced and mixed and mastered, it comes to life in a completely different way when you play it live. So it kind of adds another dimension to the music when you get to play it in front of the audience.
Yeah, and then there's also like crowd interaction. I almost feel like you almost have to it's almost like rehearsing for a play. There's almost like a choreography that you have to master in playing live as well, right?
It depends. I do know that my guitar player and bass player, they like to do this, like the simultaneous head banging things, and then they have they plan a lot of things. But I just go and get stuck inside my bubble always when I play live. That's if we play in Finland, or if I have my bass player with me. Sadly, he wasn't on the Carrick Angren tour. We had a session guy, but he usually does all the speaking, because I just want to keep myself in the bubble if possible. If I need to do the speeches, no problem at all. I can get it done. But ideal live experience for me is to have a super loud monitoring, that when your ears tickles inside when the music is so loud, and just dive into the music. And it doesn't mean that I don't notice the audience. I do get a lot of energy from the audience, even though if I don't interact that much. But the whole choreography thing is actually for the other guys except me.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy a lot what they bring visually to the live set. So I'm definitely not against that at all. But I'm just the guy in the middle that just is stuck in his own bubble.
Yeah, that has to create a lot of contrast on stage. You're in your bubble, and then they're doing the headbanging. It almost has kind of like a good cop, bad cop sort of effect to it.
Yeah. It's easy to be the bubble guy in the middle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, but you have to do guys bringing a lot of energy and doing the metal stuff on the stage. Plus my drummer, who was also a very visual drummer, not just an awesome musician. So it's good to kind of like go in the plain side to hide, so to speak. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm not an entertainer. I'm a really bad entertainer, but I do love play the music live to the audience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you also have to sing and play guitar. You're doing two things at once, so it's easier for them to do the headbanging.
Yeah, they have hair. That's also very difficult for me to do a proper headbanging, because when a bald guy does it, 99% of the time it just looks stupid.
Well, that makes me feel bad because I'm losing my hair as well. So.
But you don't need to headbang. You look cool already if you get bald.
That is true. That is very true. Thank you. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. I know that, with the devastation on the nation tour being postponed to next year, it's a total shit show for everybody at the moment. Is there just any way that the fans can support you? Is there any online merch stores that you'd like to plug that I could add in the description of this video and everything?
When is the video coming out?
In approximately 5 minutes after I hang up the phone.
Oh, well then I can actually send you the link. We are going to have this virtual gig taking place this Friday.
Mm-hmm.
That we are selling tickets, and I think we are one of the first bands that are not actually streaming, but we shot the gig already. I'm in the middle of the final editing at the moment, so it's basically like a DVD file.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's gonna be like a question and answers. We're gonna do gear rundown videos plus something extra. So it's gonna be like this is like a package for the fans. Since we don't get to go and play, we don't get to meet the fans, we don't get to answer the questions that we usually do at the merch table, hang out with people. So this is what we can offer as the second best thing. Mm-hmm. So there's this Indiegogo thing happening now. I can send you the link in the Skype chat.
Awesome. And you'll be back next year with Rotting Christ and everybody else, right?
Definitely. That whole Devastation of the Nation tour is rebooked and rescheduled for the next February, March, and all the same bands are going to be. I think it's really cool what they managed to do, move the whole tour as it is, just for the new timing. Even the venues are the same. Yeah. Nothing changed except the year.
Yeah.
No biggie. Just one number in the year changed, nothing else.
Yeah, I have to give that promoter all the credit in the world and then some for handling that. Just huge shout out to the whole staff at Devastation on the Nation.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, Tuomas, great to talk to you again, and be safe out there, and look forward to seeing you in 2021.
Yes. Thank you.
Of course, everybody, we are here with Tuomas of Wolfheart. Be sure to pick up the new album, Wolves of Karelia, out on Napalm Records this Friday, April 10th. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.